Have you ever noticed a strange straight line running across the heart of Nigeria? It's not a road, not a river, and not some glitch on Google Earth. No, it's real. And hidden in that line, a secret so old and so wild they tell the story of how Nigeria itself was born. Imagine walking across farmland in Plateau or trekking through the hills of Benue and suddenly seeing the land split in a way that seems too perfect, too straight, as though some invisible hand sliced the earth with a giant blade. People pass it every day without a second thought, but beneath it lies one of the greatest geological mysteries of Africa. Long before the kingdoms of Ife or Benin, long before the first people settled here, the land that would become Nigeria was already being torn apart by forces too powerful for the human mind to fully grasp. Millions of years ago, deep under the surface, plates of rock the size of continents shifted and collided. The pressure built, mountains rose, valleys sank, and in the chaos a great scar was left behind. That scar is the Strait Divide that still runs quietly through Nigeria today. Scientists call it a fault line. But the people who lived along it had their own stories. In Plateau, elders whispered that it was a spirit road carved into the land by gods who once walked among men. In Kogi, the story was different. They said it was the marching path of warriors so mighty that their footsteps split the earth itself. And in Enugu, some still spoke of a hidden doorway along the line, a place where the land could open and swallow anyone bold, or foolish, enough to cross at the wrong time. One day, 3 curious friends decided to chase the truth of this mysterious line. Chinedu was the scholar, always with an old geology book under his arm. Aisha was the storyteller, raised on the myths her grandmother passed down to her. And Kunle, ever the skeptic, laughed at both of them but secretly loved the thrill of an adventure. Together, on a hot afternoon, they packed Gary, groundnuts, and an old Android phone loaded with Google Maps, and set off. The journey led them past streams and farms, through red dust paths and thick bush. Kunle cracked jokes as they walked. "So this is what you dragged me out here for," he said, "to find an invisible crack in the ground." Aisha just smiled and pressed on. Chinedu's eyes scanned the land with restless excitement, waiting for the moment he could prove both of them wrong. And then they saw it. Stretching ahead of them was a valley, narrow but impossibly straight, cutting across the horizon like the land itself had been stitched apart. The air was still, heavy. Even Kunle fell silent. Aisha's voice trembled as she whispered, "My grandmother said spirits walk this road at night." Chinedu crouched down, running his hand across the rocky ground. "This isn't the work of spirits," he said, his voice low. "This is millions of years old. This is where the earth itself cracked open." For the first time that day, Kunle had no joke to make. He just stood there, staring at the endless divide that seemed to stretch forever. What they had found was no myth. They were standing on part of what geologists call the Benue Trough, one of Nigeria's greatest geological wonders. This line wasn't just a random crack. It was born at the same time the Atlantic Ocean was formed, when Africa began to tear apart from South America. Think about that. The same forces that opened the ocean, that pushed entire continents apart, left their fingerprints right here in Nigeria. Every tilted boulder, every ridge, every strange valley running straight as a ruler through the land is a chapter in that story, a mark left by the earth when it was still young and wild. But the line is more than just science. It is memory. It is history written not in books, but in the bones of the earth itself. Long before the Nok culture carved terracotta, long before empires rose and fell, the land was already telling its own story. And maybe the old myths weren't wrong after all. Maybe they were just another way of explaining what the people felt when they looked at that mysterious divide. As the sun began to set, the 3 friends stood together in silence, shadows stretching across the valley. Aisha held her breath, half expecting to hear the footsteps of ancient spirits marching through the dusk. Chinedu kept staring at the rocks, tracing the lines that seemed to whisper of fire and oceans and time beyond imagination. And Kunle, the one who had laughed the loudest, was the first to speak. His voice was quiet. "Maybe your grandmother was right, Aisha. Maybe this really is the path of spirits, just not the kind we thought." The truth is, the mysterious straight line in Nigeria isn't just about geology. It's about perspective. It's about remembering that this land, our land, carries stories older than any human being, stories written in stone and silence. And just like those rocks, pressed, cracked, and reshaped by unimaginable forces, we too are shaped by pressure, by conflict, by time. So next time you see a valley that seems too straight to be natural, or a ridge that looks like the earth itself was split open, remember, You're walking on scars from battles the earth once fought with itself. Scars that gave birth to the landscapes we now farm, build on, and call home. This isn't just geography. It's mystery. It's legend. It's Nigeria.